Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Friday Coffee Meetup. I'm Christy Connor, your host. Friday Coffee Meetup is the largest active innovation, entrepreneurial, and tech meetup in Los Angeles, California. We are virtual during the COVID time, which allows us to interact with people around the world. We are grateful for all of our members around the world who join us. We are also very grateful for the many people each week that make this happen. Although you are seeing my face right now, there's actually many people behind the scenes, and I'm going to share their faces with you, including Echo Factory, who sponsors us. So they do everything from organizing speakers and doing logistics and managing technology to things like our YouTube channel, where you can check out our previous speakers. Today, we are running the meeting via Zoom over to LinkedIn Live. And so all of our Q&As this afternoon or this morning in PST time will be actually happening via the Zoom meeting. If you're interested in being part of that, you can go to our Meetup page and get the link. Our Q&A will be handled through the center panel in Zoom at the bottom called Q&A. So if you're on the Zoom meeting, you can go ahead and put your questions in there. After we have our presentation from Darren today, I will go ahead and aggregate those questions and we will have a Q&A session. Although our chat window is available for you to say hello to your friends, we don't moderate the channel, so use your discretion, but feel free to say hello. If you have any jobs that you're hiring for, we are all about creating livelihoods and encouraging innovation across communities. So put your ideas and your jobs into the chat window. I am so pleased to be hosting Darren Eng today. He is the Executive Director of the Los Angeles Venture Association. His focus is on transforming and bringing together this really diverse ecosystem of venture capital within the Los Angeles community. You've heard from many venture people via Friday Coffee Meetup. He works with that extensive mesh network of communities to bring them together. He's going to be speaking with us this morning about why Los Angeles Venture Association is #LongLA. He is a scientist alumni of Yale, and a fun fact about him, he's actually also been honored twice as the Santa Monica YMCA Coach of the Year. Darren, welcome. We're so pleased to have you here with us this morning.
Good morning, Christy. How are you?
I'm well, thanks. It's great to have you.
It's great to be here. I appreciate the request and the
We're
privilege to speak to this audience.
Thank you. It's our honor to have you, and we're looking forward to hearing from you this morning. I think you're going to go ahead and share some slides with us.
I am. Let's see here. There we go. I assume you can see that?
Perfect. Yes, it looks great. Thank you.
Great. So welcome, everyone. Good morning. It's exciting to be speaking with you today. I've kind of thrown this together and doing different types of things about lava. And I figured I'd give a little quick background about myself. If I can advance the screen here. It is not advancing. Oh, there we go. As Christy mentioned, I think you can see the YMCA down here. A little background. I grew up in Salem. We were called the Witches, although I won't put a curse on anybody today. Salem, I spent some time at Yale and I did crew, and these are my two boys from when we were back at reunion. And as she said, I was a scientist for about 7 years, an environmental scientist, doing a lot of expert witness work and big circle of third-party claim cases, and doing a lot of compliance-related inspections across all of southeast U.S., doing compressor station inspections, phase 1s and phase 2, kind of circular cleanups, and I think you all know it as Superfund cleanups. And then when I landed in LA, it happened to be 1998, and this is where it kind of ties in with lava. I was the #2 guy at Vic, and I don't know how many of you all out there remember that, But we went from 300 members, we were with a .comer group, and we went from 300 to 10,000 really fast. And then of course, not that many years later, or even, I don't even know if it was a year later after we hit 10,000, the whole thing busted. And lots of people I watched go home. The city of LA almost seemed like it got smaller. And so I've seen a lot of booms and busts since then. I did the mobile industry for a while, and I saw things go crazy with that. We've obviously seen ad tech go crazy for a period of time here in LA. We've had, the blockchain, the cannabis. It's been a really interesting ride through different booms and bust cycles. I think this time it's different, and I'll tell you why in a minute. For a little period there, I became an operator, and I was running Greenbelt. And as Christy said, throughout that time, I've been coaching my boys and a lot of other folks, guys. I've done 29 teams at the YMCA. So fun times there. But now I'm focused on Lava. We did the awards back in December. And if you haven't seen it, I hope you'll go and take a look at that. And this is from the awards. So we've gone fully virtual, and we're on Zoom all the time. A little bit of a background on Lava, in case you didn't know. Lava was actually inspired back in 1984 by Robert Redford. He was working with a group of lawyers, and the lawyers were angel investors, basically. And one of the angel investors was lamenting to Robert that he couldn't get people to syndicate with him around the deals that he was doing with these tech companies that were helping to advance the entertainment industry. So Robert said, well, why don't you do something like I just did? And 6 months before, he had just founded Sundance. So lo and behold, the Los Angeles Venture Club was born. And well, a year later, the Los Angeles Venture Association was incorporated. And since then, we've had quite a ride. It's been a varied history up and down, but I've watched it as the chair of Green Lava from, I'd say, 2014 to 2017. And I'm moving it over towards focusing back on investors and really servicing the entire ecosystem, which, as Christy mentioned earlier, I look at it as a giant mesh network of siloed communities. If you're from LA, I think you know what I mean. It's geographically spread out. Most of you, or many of you, are in Pasadena, and it's very different in Pasadena than it is over here on the west side in West LA, Westwood, or in Culver City or Playa or South LA, or we have some great folks out in Riverside. And then we have other bio things going on up in Agora Hills and InsurTech going on in Woodland Hills. So it's a really varied, siloed community. Well, we're here to try to facilitate better communication, collaboration, and deal flow among the different nodes, or between the different nodes of that mesh network. And we've got some interesting ways that we've been going about doing that. As we just discussed, LA is a very diverse community, and as the ecosystem is of the city, I think the venture ecosystem reflects that. We've got really strong categories of venture in LA, and we've got really strong industries. Obviously, we're number one in gaming. We're, really high up there, number one in the US for manufacturing, for sure. With space, and well, aerospace is sort of the general industry. I'd say space is really taking off in space tourism. And you'll see me talk a little bit more about that later. But we've also been focused on the diversity of the people as well. And so I think you'll see that as you learn more about Lava. And I'm looking at us as being the ecosystem's accelerator. So that's what we're here for. We're here to be the ecosystem's accelerator. In bringing it back to the investors, I've moved the VCs to the VC advisory board because I believe that everyone should be getting more out of what they're putting into Lava. We don't need the VCs to be joining us every month in a board meeting dealing with mundane stuff. So first thing we did is we made Lava's Angel Advisory Board really diverse. We've got folks on here that manage a single person's $6 million fund. to Peter Del Grosso with Bryant Steibel, and that's a $6 billion fund. If you can't see pictures here, but if you could see pictures, you'd note that it was very diverse racially, and as also industry-wise, the types of things. You've got folks on here that will only invest in CPG, and others who will only invest in SaaS or enterprise SaaS. And you've got others who are all over the board. We've got consumer, and we've also got corporate VC. And I think that's something that's interesting here too. Touchdown Ventures is primarily corporate VC. I've asked the VC advisory board simply to be that, an advisory board. Give us your opinion about what you're looking for. What can LAVA do for you? Close your eyes and imagine there's this organization called the Los Angeles Venture Association. You've never heard of it before, but what is it doing for you? And for those of you who are out there that are VCs, I will ask you, please reach out to me and tell me those things so that we know. One of the most successful things we've done so far is a syndication series that we're working on. And that is, I found that it's really special because my promise to you as an investor that we invite, it's an invite only series. And my promise to you is that you'll meet 3 to 5 investors that you've never met before. And so how are we doing that? Well, we're taking 2 founders that have just closed their round of funding. So they're not pitching. They're not there to pitch you. They're just there to inform you. And we ask each of those founders, who, by the way, those rounds are within 1 round of each other. So we'll do a seed and an A, or an A and a B, but we won't do an A and a seed and a B because they're too far apart. Well, each of those founders invites 3 of their investors to join us in the program. That makes 6 investors for anybody who's counting. And then LAVA brings 4 investors from that industry vertical. Let's say it's fintech, for example. We'll bring 4 investors from that vertical, and they will either be the same stage or the later stage. And we do a little fireside chat with each of the founders. We ask their investors to share a little bit more about how do they feel about that company. Why did they invest in that company? What do they see as the future? And then we ask the others who didn't invest in it, who maybe are feeling a little FOMO at that point, what they see in this company. And the later stage guys would say, well, if you hit these milestones, then come talk to me. These are the milestones I think you should hit. So we've created a sphere of support for the founders, but we've also introduced investors who didn't know each other previously, but who can now potentially syndicate with each other in the future. So that's really our VC advisory board is here to advise. They're here to occasionally speak, and they give less than an hour a month of time to LAVA, but it's really meaningful time, and they get to also meet new people. Why is this important? Well, this survey that was done by Startup Genome, huge survey annual. Many of you probably have heard of it before. They're ranking us 6, Los Angeles as a city around the world. We're 6th. And if you look at that information, we're actually tied for 6th with Tel Aviv. But if you hone in on those numbers, okay, so, performance, I can see that we're behind, where we need to try to catch up. And I'm going to move my little viewer over here. But the big numbers where we're lagging are knowledge, which is the orange, and connectedness, which is this red bar. And when you look more deeply at that, that's where our siloed communities, I think, are holding us back. Here's how they define connectedness. There's 2 ways. One is local connectedness, a function of the number of tech meetups in the ecosystem. And 2, in infrastructure, life science focused measure of accelerators, incubators, et cetera. And so we're still pretty strong in infrastructure, but we're really weak in local connectedness. And that's what LAVA's here to solve that problem, is to reconnect the disparate silos that are in our ecosystem. So how are we doing that? Well, again, we're talking about LAVA as a giant mesh network, and it's siloed, and we're trying to facilitate the communication, the collaboration in the deal flow between those silos or those communities as I've started to define them. Well, the only way for us to do that is to grow roots in those communities. So that's what we've done. Just as I have a board to help advise LAVA in its operations, and just as I've now have the VC advisory board to help us with the focus on investors, bringing in more LPs into the ecosystem, connecting investors together, I now also have a series of community committees who are focused on the different communities. So you'll see that we have a number of different communities and diversity. And one of the things that you'll notice is, I think I mentioned before, this diversity element. Prior to coming into LAVA, or just as I was operating this one company, I started a pet project in South LA, called at the time South LA Eco. It's now called Cause Dev. It's a it is a for-profit operation, but it's working with opportunity zone type of funding to develop properties in a particular way with cause. It's basically cause-related development in the OZs for opportunity zones. If you're interested, I can share more, but my point with that is I really learned a lot about what was happening in South LA with SOLA and the Beehive. And if you're not aware of that, there's a lot of activity that's about to happen down there. And so please feel free to reach out to me on that. But our LAVA communities are here to really extend and grow roots for LAVA. And I'm going to skip this slide and go straight to this one, because this is where it's really exciting. We've now got committees in all of these different areas: cannabis, fintech, global, which is not so much an industry vertical, but it's one of our conceptual communities. LAVA space, women in LAVA, again, another conceptual community. Food tech, LAVA, LAVA gaming, LAVA bio, which covers all the groups, as you can imagine. LAVA media, which is obvious, we're LA. Green LAVA, LAVA PE. Now that's something that's new, really exciting, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that. And then LAVA Gov. And LAVA Gov, like LAVA Bio, is divided up in a bunch of different subsectors. There's really three purposes of LAVA Gov. We're focused on legislation. We're focused on how regulations affect our startups, and then GovTech. And GovTech is actually a pretty strong category. LA is not that strong in it, obviously. We're not Washington, D.C., and we're not Sacramento, but you are still starting to see more on that front. Why is LAVA PE important? Because our entire ecosystem, it's not just venture. I mean, where do our startups go? We need to have relationships with LAVA, with other portions of the ecosystem further out. And so LAVA PE was started with a partnership with AIC. It's a nonprofit organization that represents over 200 private equity funds. And we are now working together on some of their initiatives, and also to bring the LAVA community into more awareness. It's tied very often with LAVA Gov, because we're covering issues like we were saying before about legislation that is affecting our startup community. So this is where I'm going to focus now, and this is where, just check the time. I think you'll see that we've really made a lot of strides at LAVA. At the end of the year, I did something that I've been around LAVA for quite a long time, and I finally pulled off something that, if you haven't seen it, I do implore you to watch it, the LAVA Awards. And we were able to do it virtually. We really got a lot of people involved, and we elevated LAVA and the folks involved with LAVA to a great extent, to where we really are involved in all of the great areas. Brian Steibel and Baron Davis, I worked with them to do a nice piece on Kobe Bryant. So if you're a fan of Kobe, please take a look at that. Mayor Garcetti did a really nice job recognizing LAVA and the work we're doing on diversity. And Kara Nortman was our Hall of Fame. She's the first woman inducted into our Hall of Fame. And while we're on this particular slide, you'll notice that the production value of this graphic is, I can't do graphic design. I certainly can't do video. I got to do a quick shout out to the sponsor today. And it is Echo Factory. So, and thank you to Mike and all the folks at Echo Factory for doing something that was, they made us look good. So I think if you've all seen, what was that? That movie about the rock star and the Rolling Stones reporter, when the star says, hey kid, just make us look cool. Well, they actually made us look cool. So Kara joined a pretty interesting list of Hall of Famers on here, and you'll probably notice there's some pretty notable names: Bill Gross, Richard Riordan, Jake Weinbaum, Ted Meisel, and so it was really a pleasure for me to be able to break at least one of the glass ceilings that is apparent in our ecosystem by bringing in Kara, not only because she's a woman, but because of what she recently was able to succeed doing. And she's also with currently the oldest firm. Now, I've been reading a lot of articles lately where it talks about Upfront being the oldest venture fund, and it makes it seem like venture started in '96. But as we talked about before, Lava was founded in '84. So Lava and the city of LA really does have a long history there. And these are many of the reasons why we brought her on board as one of our Hall of Fame members. I implore you to reach out to me to let me know who you think this year's Hall of Famer should be, and we can recognize them with a little bit more fanfare now that we've got our feet underneath us, and now we've got Echo Factory behind us. So to kind of sum up Lava, you can see here we've got a bunch of series. Many of you may have heard of the First Look series. We're working with all of the major universities, and we've been doing so for a really long time. I believe it's been over 10 years. I think it was started in 2009, maybe 2011. First Look does a series, and this is, again, bridging the different silos, bringing together all the disparate universities, technology transfer offices into one place and presenting, hey, this is come take a first look at some of the really interesting things. You notice on that graph I showed earlier, knowledge was the other area we were weak. And knowledge in the definition of that particular survey had to do with patents and early stage research. So we have really strong universities here with the research side, but for some reason the patenting wasn't as strong. And also our talent was high, but it wasn't as high as it should have been. And I think that's because what we've identified with Lava Bio is that many of the talent that's coming out of LA and out of the universities are not connecting. There's a lot of jobs here, but they're not connecting with those jobs. So again, we're working with Biocom LA, and we're going to work with them like as if they're a large, think of their annual programming as a conference. We're going to manage their financial side of things. Just like we're working now with AIC, and we're working on that venture with them, we're working with the LAEDC being their presence for venture, because they're focused on all over economic development. And so we're really tying groups together, and our subcommittees are becoming subcommittees of other organizations that are throughout the city that have strong roots in their particular silos. We have an annual Meet VC event, and you guys can read. So I'm going to jump through here and just reiterate all the different communities, talk very briefly about some of the things that we've been doing in the communities, and then I'm going to wrap it up to go to Q&A. So we've got gaming, and what you'll see here is that this is just sort of a little bit of a demonstration of the backgrounds that we've been running, and here's gaming here. I'm going to run through these really quickly, but I'm going to put one of my favorite ones up now, because I just think it was a pretty cool event that we did. We've started to, here we go. We've said, here's FinTech. Global Lava, we recently did something with Korea, and we brought a whole bunch of interesting startups from Korea that, on paper were really great. They presented challenging, and we discovered that we need to provide them with a better pathway to really recognizing the cultural difference of presenting in the United States. But on paper, their fundamentals, a company that's got $20 million is not exactly, a seed round, startup. So we brought some really interesting companies here, and the diversity of our grouping has become really strong. This is one of our Women in Lava and Lava Bio events that brought together all of these women are scientists. They're all here in LA. Obviously, they're diverse, and they're either founders in a startup that's venture backed, or they're venture capitalists themselves. And it was amazing putting this panel together, because I now have this long list of women who were also suggested for that panel. These are those women, and that was really exciting. We've been doing other types of things where we cross-pollinate between our different groups. Green Lava did a global lava event recently, and for those of you who don't know, this symbol is the Francophonie symbol. It represents all the countries in the world that speak French. And so we did for World Day, for Francophonie World Day, we did an event on that. And I will go back to this one. This event here was for women scientists and women and girl scientists. So there's a World Day for women and girl scientists, who knew? And so we were celebrating that. I'll pitch you for 2 seconds and just say that Lava is a nonprofit, and we operate on sponsorship. If you'd like to give back to the community, if you'd like to have a say and be part of Lava and market through these different pieces, and if you're not an investor and you're interested in trying to be invited into the room, or have someone that have invitation rights to get someone who is an investor into the room, please feel free to talk to me about that. We focus it all around our community sponsorships. And this right here is one of my favorite slides. I'm going to put it up behind myself and just talk quickly, because a lot of you are in Pasadena, and so much of the technology here is from Pasadena. This is Percy, obviously, and Percy is now on Mars. I don't know if it's she or he. I don't know, maybe they. I think that's what we have to call it these days. The arm that is doing a lot of the testing equipment was done by a local company. They happened to be a client of EcoFactory, in fact, and they did the technology. They built the entire arm, and they're in Pasadena right there with you. Obviously, JPL had a lot to do with that, but then one of our sponsors and our board member represents ASU, Arizona State University, and they have components in the Master Z-Cam and some of the other testing things. So when Percy landed on Mars, a huge population of people right here in Southern California had something to do with that. And many of those folks came from the Los Angeles, venture ecosystem. Why is media here? Well, media is here because the event that we did, that this was the backdrop for, actually covered 2 companies that are in the space category, but it's almost kind of space tourism. And there's a big conference coming up with space tourism that we are a part of and a partner with. And again, another group that we're partnering with to bring us deeper roots into another community, Lava Space. But the Lava Media folks brought us a company that uses footage from NASA while you're in a self-deprivation tank to experience what it's like to do a spacewalk. But that's not the cool one that we had that day. The cool one we had that day was called Space Hero. And if you haven't heard of it, it's really interesting. It's like America's Got Talent. They're looking for a winner. The winner is going to be called the Space Hero, but they're looking globally for the Space Hero. And what's the big deal about the Space Hero? Well, it's 10 days in the International Space Station if you win. So I think that's pretty cool. I'm going to be following that. I'm a total geek. As we started at the beginning, I'm a scientist. And well, that's it. So Lava Media, Lava Space, we've got Lava Gaming, obviously. Our gaming group last night did a great event on Clubhouse. And we brought in parents of gamers, and we're talking about the business of that side. And many ventures are partnering with many of those personalities. So it's really kind of a really dynamic space. And these organizations are representing many of the gamers. I don't know how I ended up with that, but that is my presentation. I thank you guys for listening, and I will, I'll leave us with, let's see, this one here. Christy, back to you.
Yes, yes. Okay, great. Thank you so much, Darren. I love all that Lava is focused on right now. You've been in this position for about a year. You touched on many different things. Is there one thing that you're especially proud of in the last year that you'd like to just reiterate on, or maybe it wasn't even in your presentation, but is there something that you're really proud about in the last year since you've taken on this role?
Look, I'd say three things. I'd say the first thing is I'm really proud of the volunteers that have stepped forward to be on our committees. The committee chairs have really made my job easier in the sense of they're professionals. We get together, and if you watch the calendar, you'll see that there really isn't a week that goes by without an event happening or a program happening of some sort. On my side, I'm really proud of the relationship with Echo Factory and the award show that we did, because that was something that was Herculean, and I think it came off really, really, really well.
Well done. I loved your focus on diversity in your presentation. What plans does LAVA have to support Black communities around Los Angeles? Is something specific planned?
Yeah, well, so I mentioned, my pet project that I have going on in South LA, CODSDev. What we're doing is we're raising an opportunity zone fund, but with a specific model that brings together not only a property acquisition, but puts two businesses immediately into that space. So real estate folks call it a tenant in tow, but we're both the tenant and the landlord. And the interesting thing is that boosts the economics of the entire deal, because we're able to kind of double dip with how the funding is affecting all of those things. As far as LAVA goes, if you look at the VC advisory board, if you look at our programs, we've had programs not even intentionally, but just because we're focused in the right areas. We've had several all Black programs, and that was not on purpose. It was just those were the roles that were in that space. We've had, when we did Latin America, we did a global event, Latin America. We had 3 VCs on the panel, as well as government officials. It just so happened they all ended up being women. And I think, with that women and girls in science, I did have to go and really find, a Latino scientist and a Black scientist. But once I did, and once I tapped into those communities, I have a half a dozen people behind them now that I could tap for future ones. And I think this idea that often we hear the excuse, well, I just need to find those candidates. Well, yeah, you do need to find those candidates. And it's looking outside of the bubble that we're in right now. But it's not really that far out the bubble. You just got to make that one extra phone call and it's there. So we're really working with the local organizations to, the Valley EDC, for example, is working with us to identify other pockets. And so we're actively looking for pockets.
That's wonderful. And I know Anna, who asked this question, Jay Goss was on here. He's a venture capitalist with Waymaker 360 Health. He's spoken with us before, and another partner with them as well is Kwame Ulmer, and they have a group called MedTech Color. It's focused kind of in the health area, but you might check that out as well. And for those of you that are on the line, we are going to be having open networking today. I didn't mention that previously, but after we finish our Q&A, if you want to stick around, talk to Darren. I know there's a few other venture capitalists on the line right now. So if you want to stick around, we will move you into the panelist pool when we finish Q&A. With that, the next question is, are there any realistic funding sources in the LA area for industrial heavy manufacturing startups looking for significant A-round investment to commercialize?
So major, I don't know if there's major. I think there's ancillary investors here. And I think that's one of the challenges. I'll be able to answer that question better somewhere mid-summer. We're about to bring in an army of grad students from Pepperdine for their summer internship. And I've got a host of market research projects for them, for me to be able to, one, answer that question really quickly, and two, to be able to have infographics that are available in what I've putting together as the Lava Library. And it'll have information both outward going for non-members, and then there'll be some better resources for that type of research available, all focused on isolating how we look at LA. Because I think, as most people out here know, if you're long LA, if you're, as a Kara Nortman, hashtag long LA, you recognize that we as an ecosystem, really it's because the maturity, like we talk about Upfront being the oldest fund, but there are a lot of VC investors here that are in other funds that were around before Upfront was founded. They just closed whatever fund they were working on and they have a new one, because many of the LPs don't stay together, or the MPs don't stay together. They found new funds, and the LPs tend to like to stay with repeat funding sources. So I've digressed away from your question, but I know that sort of BAM Ventures, for example, does a lot of CPG, and they have a lot of relationship with manufacturing. So I'll throw that name out there. They're also on our VC advisory board. So I'm familiar with them, but by the middle of the summer, I'll be much more familiar with the different categories, because these grad students are going to be pulling together the lists for us.
That's wonderful. And, from interns to volunteers, is there a way to volunteer without being an investor? We have someone who's interested in helping kind of pre-seed founders move to seed, and they have experience kind of exposing them and showcasing them on a full VR platform, and would love to be able to help.
Yeah, so absolutely. So we, as I mentioned, every one of those communities that you saw those logos for has a committee. And I'm looking to build more committees. CPG is conspicuously not one of the committees, because I don't have enough of a critical mass of people that are interested in volunteering for that committee. What we tend to do is I start to bring together folks as a committee, but we really don't formalize it until we know that we have a critical mass that will be able to continue to repeat programming behind it. So anybody that's out there that is interested, they can certainly volunteer. Most of the folks that are on the committees are not investors. The investors I direct either to our angel advisory board or our VC advisory board. And by the way, we'll at some point be doing an Executive advisory board, which is for pre-accelerators, incubators, and accelerators. But again, it's just been a matter of, I'm a one-man kind of show right now with volunteers, and I'm really focused on bringing investors back, not the startups at the moment.
Wonderful. I know, we've been in COVID now for a little over a year. It's been a challenging environment for you as a super connector, bringing these communities together. You did talk about a number of events, but are you seeing any shifts in how people are connecting or bringing that network together based on COVID?
Yes.
Or the situation that we're in right now?
Yeah, I think we're all at this point. I think, look, there's good and bad from this. I think the COVID and the Zoomification, if you will, of our lives has made it a lot easier for people to reach folks that they weren't able to reach before. We could bring in a panelist from outside LA that really sits on top. I'm about to do a SPAC series on SPACs. And while I'd say the biggest guy here is, Harry Sloan is from LA. One of the other panelists I have is in Texas, and he's done 9 SPACs already. He's been doing SPACs since 2011, and we would never have gotten him if we were live. So, and I think so that's helped. As far as the networking question, I think it's become more difficult. It's hard to have randomized, we're about to have this sort of open networking at the end of the event. Today, it's a little bit harder to meet people that way on Zoom, I think. Lava hasn't solved that problem yet. We've done some one-on-one randomizations to mixed reviews. And so, it's a little bit harder. You can't look around the room and kind of get a chemistry feeling for someone. If you're thrown into a one-on-one, you feel like you've just wasted those 5 minutes if there is no chemistry there. So, it's harder to get good quality in the online networking. Clubhouse is an area that we're starting to look at, but even that's, I'm looking forward to being live in person again.
It will be great to be in person again. I know for us, we've run kind of a speed networking event. I'm happy to chat with you offline about that, just to try and build something in the absence of, when we can't meet in person. What are you feeling inspired about in the year ahead? We're coming off this year. There's hope for the future with vaccines and things. What are you excited about and inspired by for the upcoming year?
I think, thank you. I just see someone put up the Icebreaker is a good platform. I'm gonna have to check that out. A couple of things, and not to be sort of self-promoting, but I will. One of the things I'm excited about this year is redoing the Lob Awards. Now that we've done it once this way with this platform and turning it into a show, I've never done that before, and I learned a lot of lessons and taking off the professionalism from Echo Factory. So I'm really excited about that. As a scientist, I'd say I'm really excited about where we're going in a lot of areas. Space is really compelling for many, many, many reasons. The old space race days created a lot of the technology boom and the lifestyle changes. I know it ended up being bad, but Teflon came out of that, Tyvek came out of that. A lot of chemical compounds came out of solving problems in space. And so that's really exciting to me, the space tourism type thing we're solving. And I think the requirement on energy, I'm a big green person. I was chair of Green Lava for a long time. And I think we've been, Mother Nature has forced us to slow down a little bit. I think it's going to come back with our travel is going to come back with a vengeance. I'm really looking forward to traveling again. But the science behind a lot of what we're doing has really been able to take some leaps and bounds ahead. And I think because we're taking it more seriously, we're seeing a lot of funding come out of both the EU and out of the Biden administration. Well, we haven't seen it yet, but we're seeing it. They're fighting for it right now. The EU has already passed a number of different regulatory type things that are pushing for more money to go into science and research. And that's exciting to me because those new developments create new startups.
That's amazing. We are hopeful for the future. Did Aim's questions bring up anything you'd like to share with us before we move over to open networking?
I think we covered everything. That last bit was really, my angle on my view of the world. So.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Darren, for being with us. For those of you on LinkedIn Live, we are going to shut it off now. Thank you for watching us on LinkedIn Live. We will be pulling everybody who's on the Zoom meeting over into the panelist pool. So if you'd like to do some open networking, stick around. And with that, I'm going to turn off the recording and we'll do some logistical things here to move everyone over. Thank you and have a wonderful weekend.